request that we have an online classes only. Unfortunately, I'm still not at my best. So I thought that this might be safer for everyone to join me online instead of meeting me in the classroom. But anyhow, I understand that many of you do not attend classes in person, but rather participate online. So that kind of gives us then the equal opportunity for what we have to cover today and in the next session of classes. You might be surprised by some of the names you see as participants of today's class, because some of you are students at the Masters of European Integration, whereas some of you are students at the Masters of Law and Gender. And with this in mind, I would ask the students from the Master of Law and Gender to briefly introduce themselves firstly, just so that I know, or maybe you can raise a hand on Zoom, or just tell me a few words about yourself, where you are coming from, and whether you are in Serbia now or you are still in your respective countries. So now what complicates actually things is that you cannot speak at the same time. So may I start by actually calling on people as I see them on my screen? And what I would like you to tell me is whether you're attending, which of the master's program you are attending, and then tell me whether you are in Belgrade or abroad. So to me on the screen, I see Rachel first.
Hi guys, I'm Rachel and I'm in Serbia. Nice to meet you guys. And I'm in Master of European Integration, master student. And I'm not in Belgrade, but I'm looking forward to meeting you in person. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. But are you, so far, have you been attending classes in person, or are you always joining remotely?
Actually, no, just online classes.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So the next person I see is Saiful Islam Zumder.
Thank you, Professor Ka. This is Saiful Islam Mazumdar. I am from Bangladesh. I am a student of Law and Gender. I completed my Bachelor of Business Administration from the Department of Finance and Banking, University of Rajshahi, Bangladesh.
Okay, and are you, so sorry, I might have missed the part. Are you in Bangladesh at the moment, or are you in Belgrade?
I am now in at Kragujevac, Serbia.
Kragujevac, okay. Yeah. So then that means that you are also participating remotely in all the classes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Ksenia Petrovic.
Hi, I'm in Law and Gender course, and I'm in Belgrade, but currently at work. That's why I'm participating online, and sometimes I participate in person whenever I can manage.
Okay, understood. Thank you. Una Danilovic.
Hello, I'm from the Masters Law and Gender. I am from Belgrade, and as well as when I manage, I come to the class. I'm currently in the car, but in Belgrade, and I hope you can hear me well.
Yeah, we can hear you excellent. I hope you can hear us well as well. Yes. Okay, so Sharmarke Abdi Samad, and I apologize if I'm ruining anyone's, pronunciation of anyone's name.
No, it's okay. Hello, my name is Sharmarke. I'm from Somalia. I'm currently still in my home country. We're waiting for my visa process, and I'm studying a master's degree in law and gender.
Okay, excellent. Well, we hope that you'll get your visa approved soon, and that we'll see you in Belgrade.
Thank you so much.
Then I have Song Yue.
Yeah, hi, Professor. My name is Song Yue, and I'm currently work and live in the Bo. So I took this class on online courses, and I majored in European integration.
Thank you, Song. Thank you. Sihan Feng.
Good evening, Professor. My name is Feng Sihan. My major is Master of the EU Integration, and I also live and work in Bo. And I think I can't go every class in person. I think I will online to take classes.
Okay, thank you. I understand. Thank you so much. Niksha?
Good evening. I attend the Europe integration program. I'm here in Belgrade. I work and I also go to the lectures in live. So yeah, this is something different, and yeah, that's all.
Okay, Niksha, so I'm looking forward to meeting you in person as well, based on what you have just disclosed to us. And apologize if you were on the way to the faculty when receiving my email for the change of
Yeah,
venue.
but no problem. I'm here in the neighborhood, so it wasn't anything problematic for me.
Okay, good to know. Thank you. Natasha Ivanovic?
Good evening. Yes, I'm from Serbia and I live in Belgrade. I attend master's program of European integration, and I do usually attend in person. But last week I also did send you an email because I was sick, and I wasn't attending in person. I was attending online, but I usually do attend in person. And as everybody else, I'm looking forward to meeting you in person.
Natasha, I hope that you have recovered from whatever illness was preventing you from
Well,
attending.
it was an allergic rash, so I have my doctor's appointment on Wednesday, so I hope that everything will be fine till Wednesday.
Okay, so do we. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dušanka Tomašević?
Hello, everyone. My name is Dushanka. I am from Law and Gender Master. And currently I'm waiting bus to Pančevo because I live there. So it was a bit of troubling the coming here and then getting back. So if possible, I will stay non-active due to traveling back, if that's okay with you.
That's okay, of course, Natasha. And again, apologies, then you're the one who is suffering the most from my last minute decision to change from in-person or hybrid to remote. I hope that you can follow the class via your cell phone while in bus. And I'll also do the recording of the class, so for that everyone who wasn't in a position to join us today, or when you want to review some of the matters we're going to discuss, you have the recording as well. Carlos Camacho.
Yes, hello. Good evening to everyone. I'm Carlos. I'm from Mexico, and currently I'm enrolling to the master's degree of European integration law. And yes, I'm attending in person to all the lessons. So yeah, I'm looking forward to meet you all in person.
Okay, great. What an amazing international group of students we have at the law faculty. Alexander Lisulov.
That would be me. Hello, good evening, everyone. I'm a student at Law and Gender Master. Sometimes I attend online, sometimes I attend in person. It's a pleasure to meet you all, and I look forward to working with you.
Excellent. Thank you for being with us. Okay, so here's a puzzle. Somebody has connected via 28410 number or identity code. So if that person can let us know who he or she is.
Hello, everybody. My name is Wu Nancy. First time I use online, so I can't change its name. It means a number name. I'm from China now. I'm living in Belgrade. So every time I have class in the site. Today, first time I online.
Okay.
That's all.
Okay, that's not a problem. But tell me, are you attending masters of
master? Yes, continue the masters.
European integration or law and gender? Sorry, I lost you, perhaps.
Sorry.
Which of the two master programs are you attending?
Master in Europe.
Okay, thank you. And from what I see, Sharmarke Abdisamad.
Yes, I'm good too.
You already presented yourself. Sorry, yes. No. I'm sorry. So is there anyone else who I didn't call? who would like to, I'm looking at the list of participants and it's kind of changing and rotating, so I hope I didn't miss anyone. But here's, and if I have, please interrupt me and say who you are. Here's the thing, and the explanation why two groups have joined together. That is because what we have to cover on both master's programs in the same week is the same material, and it regards how to write a master thesis, some rules about quoting sources, and this is why I'm displaying this particular image on your screens. Can I turn in a paper without citing all sources? And the answer is no. And fun enough, the footnote comes from Hamlet, William Shakespeare. But apart from the joke with the footnote, the answer to can I submit a paper without citing sources is indeed no. And what we are going to cover here in class today and in the next session will be how to make proper references to the sources and what are all the constituent elements of your master thesis in the first place, and then all the other seminar papers and written works you're going to submit in this course. So before I continue with this, maybe it's about time for me to start the recording.
Recording in progress.
Okay, so the thing is, irrespective of the fact whether you're a student of the Masters of Law or Gender or in European Integration or any other master's program that we are offering at the law faculty, the same rules applies. You have to consult the relevant literature, make the best use of it, and also make a reference to the literature you have been using in the footnotes in a way how this master program has laid out the rules that you are expected to follow. Before we continue with the rules, let me ask you something. And this question goes to the Masters of Law and Gender students, because I already know the answer from the Masters in European Integration students. Are you available tomorrow at 6 p.m. to have a class? Does it overlap with some other class that you might have?
Yes, we have, I think, legal theories tomorrow at 6.
That's tomorrow at 6. Okay. If that's the case, then I'm going to follow up with the exact date and time when you're free to have this, to made up for the class we lost last Friday. And for the group on Masters in European Integration, we have a class scheduled for tomorrow at 6, right?
Yes.
Okay. And can we, I think it might be best if tomorrow we also continue in a virtual format. And I'm going to send you the information by email as well as some assignments to go through after this class. So Law and Gender Group, I will give you the date to cover for what we have lost last Friday, and Masters in European Integration Group will continue tomorrow as planned. Okay, so the most important document for us to review for the purposes of today's class is, and give me a second, it's the Master Thesis Writing Guidelines. And I know that you have already gone through them, or at least I hope, when my colleague Petar Pavlović was having a lecture, but his focus was on some, word formatting issues and technical aspects when it comes to the formatting of a document that you are expected to do, whereas my focus will be more on the substance of the body of the thesis and what in that regard is expected from you. And the final, okay, somebody is drawing lines on the screen, so let's try not to do that. But the final, let's say, work that you're going to submit as a result of this master's program is going to look somehow like, and here I'm looking to find the right document for you to share. Okay, maybe not a document. Maybe we'll go this way. Okay, so we're going here, and then I'm going to show you, for example, how a master thesis may look like. And then on the basis of this image, we will go through all those details on how you can reach and secure that you have a master thesis with a cover page, with a table of contents, with abstracts and all the other constituent elements of it, which in the very end contains an elaborate list of literature that was being used, and that's divided into, let's say, natural sections such as books and articles, case law, internet sources, legislation, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to send you by email several examples of how your final master thesis may look like, in order for you perhaps to understand the rules that we are going through and why it is important to follow them. So here's another master thesis from a different program. As I told you, it doesn't matter whether you are on the law and gender course or in European integrations or international commercial law, the rules are pretty much the same, and they require an elaborate list of table of contents, list of abbreviations, if you're using them, is also welcome, abstract, keywords, and then the body of the thesis with footnotes that need to be written in a certain way, which is something that we are going to discuss today. And then, of course, at the very end, you have a list of literature, which may be, and here is where you have some freedom, it may be organized in a way that you or your eye thinks looks best, but it needs to be complete. All the literature that you have consulted and put reference in a footnote should be in the list of references, and there should not be a piece of literature in the list of references that was not included also in your footnotes throughout the text. So now when we go back to the master thesis writing guidelines, you will see how from the blank piece of paper you are expected to reach the result that you have just seen on screen. So to start with, here's a summary of the structure of the thesis. So as you have seen, you're going to have a cover page where certain information on you and on your thesis will be included, table of contents with all the titles and subtitles in your thesis, list of abbreviations. If you have been using more than 5 or 6 abbreviations, then a list of abbreviations is helpful for the reader. List of figures, tables, or illustrations. That's not a mandatory part of your thesis, but sometimes, especially for those of you who might be doing some research with surveys of different sorts, and especially if you're looking and going through some economic parameters, maybe you're going to have some tables or illustrations inside your thesis. So there, a list of those is also something that should be separately listed at the beginning of your thesis. Abstract and keywords, and I will focus a bit more on what the abstract is supposed to contain and how it should be written, as well as on the keywords. The rule is to have it in English and in Serbian. For those of you not speaking Serbian, I mean, you can always Google Translate, or you can consult some of your colleagues from the program to translate your English abstract to Serbian. But it is also useful, I mean, to have the Serbian abstract for the purposes of those future readers of your thesis who might do the search of the key terms in Serbian to identify that your thesis covers an important topic that they would like to learn more about and, research more. So this is the reason why insisting on the abstract and keywords in Serbian is also something that is expected from you, irrespective of your knowledge or lack thereof of Serbian language. And then, of course, the body of the thesis, which, covers the main ideas that you're going to be researching about, and we'll talk about how it should be structured. Last but not least is the list of references. And as you have seen earlier, when I was giving you examples of some of the master theses that have been successfully defended at the law faculty, this means including all the books and articles and legal sources and case law and internet sources and whatever else you might be using for the purposes of the body of your thesis or for the purposes of your research. So the list at the end of your master thesis should be complete and should be well organized according to the instructions that we'll go through in this class. Last, there's a list of appendices, which is something that, I rarely see, I have to admit, at the law faculty, that the master thesis contains appendices, but in theory, that could be the case if you're doing some survey or questionnaire and then you want to have an appendix with a list of questions and whatever analysis of the results, which is more detailed than what your text of the thesis contains. Some of you have asked me, and some of you are probably thinking about it as we speak, is another item which is on the agenda for our classes, and that's the so-called mock exam or the exam per se. The mock exam is not going to be given to you as something that you need to do in class. I will hand it out to you via email, and you will have plenty of time to do it at home, and then there will be a time scheduled for you to come so we can review it in my office and perhaps change and correct something if it's not done right. But it's no science fiction, I have to assure you. It pretty much looks like this example I'm going to show you now. So you will receive from me a paper, something looking like a master thesis written by somebody else. And it's going to have the whole body of the thesis. So it's not like you are going to write a master thesis for the purposes of practical skills exam. You will already get somebody else's work. But what you will have to do is to make it compliant with the master thesis guidelines. So this article, for example, does not have a front page, cover page. You will have to make it for yourself as if this was your master thesis. So whatever your names are on the cover page, you will have the University of Belgrade Faculty of Law, masters in whatever the masters is. Topic would be the issue of enforcement of investment arbitral awards in the post-Lisbon era. Student, you will put your name and index number. Supervisor will put my name as your supervisor. And then at the bottom of the page, you will have a reference to Belgrade 2025 or 2026. And then you will continue by making a table of contents using all the tools that the Word is providing to you and that you have covered with Petar Pavlovic. Then you will make an abstract and a list of keywords based on this article. So you will have to read it in order to make a short abstract, and we'll come to that, what the abstract should contain, and list keywords. And then you will make formatting changes. Like if something in terms of form is not okay with these titles and subtitles, and in particular with the footnotes, you will make those changes in the text. And last, you will go to the end of this paper and look at the list of literature. So here are all the references that this person has used, but it's going to be your task to organize it systematically, as you've seen in the examples from the other master theses, so that you have different sections where books and articles will be contained, different sections where you'll have legal sources, different sections with case law, and finally with other internet or other sources. So that's what's going to be your exam. Mock exam is something that you will have be provided with at the end of our classes, and you'll have plenty of time to go through it. And it can be also be your final exam if we are happy with the result. If not, the real exam will be at any point in time in 2026 when you register for the exam, and then I'm going to hand out a different text for you to organize. So as you can see, 90% of your work for the exam in practical skills is going to regard some formatting matters, organizing the master thesis so that it has all elements that it should have as the master thesis guidelines prescribe. Only 10% of your work is going to be writing something, and what you're going to write is only an abstract for the thesis that you will be receiving to review and to organize. Is that understood? And if not, please, maybe now is the appropriate time to ask questions. If you have any questions, by the way, you can always type them in the chat feature of the Zoom window, and then I can comment on or give you an answer to what you have asked. But as you will see, I mean, the whole purpose of this practical skills exercise is to equip you with the tools or make sure that you understand the technical requirements of what this master's program requires from you in terms of how your master thesis should look like. With this being said, and by the way, the idea is learning by doing. So, you know, the working hypothesis is if you can do it on somebody else's paper easily, then you will most certainly be able to do it when you are the one writing a paper or master thesis. So as I said, the cover page should contain the name of the institution, your name, title of the thesis, your supervisor's name, and then place and year of submission. And then it's up to you how you're going to organize it, whether you're going to have different colors, whether you're going to include the logo of the Belgrade University. I mean, you know, the design is up to you. But these are the elements that have to be on the cover page. Table of contents is something that the Word allows you, you know, to make it automatically, as long as you use the appropriate styles functions when you are, and you know, add styles to your titles and subtitles. Then in the end, it's just going to be clicking on one button, insert table of contents, and it's going to be there for you. So that is also something that is very useful for several reasons. Having the complete table of contents available at the beginning of your paper is helpful for your supervisor, but also for anyone else who is going to be reading your thesis later on, because it gives you the main idea on what this thesis is about and how it is structured. And it also helps the reader to perhaps skip certain sections that do not seem so relevant for him or her and focus on the sections that follow, which actually contain research on the topic that somebody might be interested in. For your supervisor, they also show whether you have logically structured your thesis, you know, and helps you or makes him or her, makes it easier for them to do some switches in your thesis, like maybe section 3 should in your supervisor's mind be more appropriate to be section 4, whereas something else should be included in section 3, or vice versa, section 5 should go up and be more to the, you know, in the middle of the thesis as section 3 or something like that. But the point is, table of contents is easy to make if you're using the right tools in Word, and it's very helpful for your supervisor and for the future readers of your thesis. So do not think of it as just a mere formalistic requirement that does not bear any essence. List of abbreviations is useful for another reason. How often, I mean, okay, let's go with an easy abbreviation, and that's EU. Do you, when you're writing sentences in English, let's imagine you're writing a 2-page paper. I mean, are you going to write European Union every time you refer to it, or are you going to use the abbreviation EU? I suppose the latter, which would also be the case, for example, if you're talking about United Nations. You would probably use UN instead of United Nations. And then there are other organizations whose names are much longer and the abbreviations are 5-letter words, like ICSID, for example. That's the International Center for Settlement of Investment Disputes. If you're going to refer to it by its full name every time you mention it, it's just going to be too heavy on the text and make it more difficult for the reader to go through your sentences. So I suppose you will be using abbreviations. And when we are talking about the abbreviations which are so widely spread, you might think, okay, so why do I need to include a list of abbreviations? But if you're going to be talking about some legal sources or organizations that do not necessarily, ring a bell in somebody's mind when they see the abbreviation, then it is helpful for the reader to have one table of abbreviations that he or she can consult every time when you make a reference to this abbreviation in your text. So for you, it helps you make the text lighter and easier to comprehend using the abbreviations, whereas for your reader, the list of abbreviations helps understand the text and get acquainted with the abbreviations that you are using. So that's another thing which, you might think of it as a formalistic requirement, but indeed it's helpful both for you and for the readers of your thesis. The same goes for list of figures, tables, or illustrations. If you have many figures, tables, and illustrations in your text, then it helps if you give them, names or titles in the body of your thesis, and then also have a list of them at the beginning so that the reader can jump and know on which page a certain table is included that he or she might be interested to learn more about. And then we come to the first, let's say, substantive input from your side, and that's writing an abstract of your thesis, or this is the only substantive part that you will be doing for the purposes of exam in this class, and that's writing the abstract for the thesis that I will give to you as an exam paper to work on. So the instruction says the length should be approximately 200 words. So it's nothing excessive. It's like half a page, not more. And it should provide information on the research topic, the aims, the theoretical methodological framework, and the major findings of the thesis. It should be followed by separate keyword sections, including 4 to 6 keywords. That's, as I said, useful for the indexing and online search purposes for, again, your future readers. If they eventually come across to your thesis, you want to give them the right keywords that will lead them to your thesis, and not to keep it in the dark and invisible for anyone interested in the same topic that you are researching. Okay, there's one, let's say, practical advice that I might give to you, or I'm going to give you some comments based on my experience of working 20 plus years at the law faculty and seeing many master theses and many articles where the concept of the abstract was not understood properly. Abstract is not a self-standing part of your thesis. It's not like the abstract should serve to substitute for the introduction. Or it's not like the abstract should contain something that's not already contained in your master thesis. Quite the contrary. Abstract should lead the reader through your thesis. It's almost like descriptive table of contents, if you know what I mean. So if you look at the table of contents, to the extent that it's well structured, on the basis of the table of contents, without reading the text of the thesis, you could be able to write a good abstract by saying, okay, so the identifying the main research topic is visible from the title of the thesis already. And then you go by, the author starts by providing an introduction to this and that, and by setting the field or the grounds for comparative research on the topic of this and that. He further on, or she further on, develops this survey by analysis of ABC, and then in the end concludes with suggestions for something. So literally, if you go through the main titles of somebody's thesis, you can write an abstract, like a descriptive guide through somebody's thesis, which is not overburdened with some new ideas, new introductions, new conclusions, or anything of the sort. A brief 200 words introduction, descriptive introduction through your thesis. And by the way, you have heard me saying that you should write something like the author starts by analyzing this and then continues by analyzing that, and then contrasts the opinions from different authors or something like that. You should avoid addressing the author as yourself. So you're not speaking, in first, let's say, noun. So you're not saying, I will conduct the research where it will be shown this and that. But you are using the neutral language. And that's something very common generally for scientific research and scientific writing, that we're trying to avoid first, pronouns. So we never say, I think that this is the best approach. But we say, this author thinks that this is the best approach. Or we say, this paper concludes with determining that this is the best approach. So it may sound a bit depersonalized to you, or maybe you're not going to like it, but, that's what is required from all of us writing about, in the area of legal and humanitarian sciences. I mean, unless you're writing a novel where you can use a different approach. Very rarely you will see in the scientific texts and texts published in legal or economical or political journals that people say, I believe this, or my conclusion is. It's usually in the third person's manner of speaking. Okay, so we've covered one important aspect both for your future thesis and for your exam in this course, and that is how to write a good abstract. And then we go to the body of the thesis, where I cannot be of much guidance. This is something which you will discuss with your mentor, supervisor of your thesis, starting from the choice of the appropriate title or research topic. This is something that you will go to your potential supervisor, give him or her some ideas on what you want to cover, hear their feedback, whether that's a good idea or not, or maybe hear some suggestions or what else remotely close to the area of your interest should be covered and has not been covered already. The supervisors are they're not there to tell you what you should write about. So don't ever come empty-handed to your supervisors. So you should have an idea what interests you, what motivates you, what you want to do research in. Because if you did not choose your topic for the research, it's, the quality of the final product might be questionable. But so you choose the areas for your research, and then with those areas in mind, and have a few of them if possible, go to your supervisor. And then your supervisor will be in a position to tell you whether you have opted for something that is, makes sense to continue researching on it, or whether it's something that should be put aside for different reasons. Somebody else has written a master thesis on the same topic last year, so you're not going to do it again. There's nothing new that can be covered. I mean, we do not allow to have the same thesis over and over again. Second, it might be, this is a great topic, but it's super novel. Nobody has written about it, or only few people have written about it. It's going to be too difficult for you to do the research because there's not so much material to research on. So they might tell you, be aware that this can be super tricky and difficult, and maybe it's not the best or the easiest task for you to take at this stage. Or again, and if you find a topic that they think is an interesting topic and where the research is needed, they will also direct you to some of the relevant literature that they may have in mind, but which does not mean that you are free from doing your own independent research. Quite the contrary. The quality of the thesis, one from the other, among other things, can be seen, or the thesis can be compared on the basis of the research efforts put into the thesis. And the research efforts can also be visually presented in the list of references. It's obviously, if I have read 5 books, and you have read 10 books on the same topics, you've done more research than I have. If I have consulted 2 legal sources and you have consulted 12 legal sources, again, obviously you've done more research than I have. And if I have based my findings on 5 cases and you have read and commented on 20 cases, obviously your research is going to be better than mine. So if at the end we both defend, let's assume we defend the same thesis, but based on this research in quantitative terms different one from the other, it's very unlikely that your thesis will not be better than mine. Just because you've done more research, which has opened up maybe different questions or new questions from the ones that I have addressed, and you will have, your conclusions will be based on a more solid grounds than my conclusions will be. So me, as your supervisor, I will direct you to 1 or 2 books or 1 or 2 cases or 1 or 2 legal sources, but the rest of it is going to be your task. So again, don't expect too much from the supervisors, and do not limit yourself on what the supervisor suggests for you to read or comment on. Go beyond that. And luckily, I mean, legal research is nowadays much easier than it once was because you have so many materials available online. And my colleague Vanya Error, the head of the library, has already directed you to some of the legal sources, databases, and then again, of course, the hard copy materials, there are plenty of them in our library and with some of the professors who might be your mentors. So you'll be safe in that regard. And I mean, we as the institution will help you to a great extent, but again, never substitute for what your research might come across. And as you know, and I'm sure Mia Dragojanovic might have told you as well, I mean, the legal research these days is even easier because of all those databases where you can find books free of charge. So not only the open science is a legitimate tool, but also the databases that put books without publishers' consent, but still for us academics very useful, are something where you can find a lot of material for your research. So everything is welcome in that respect. Everything but plagiarism. And we'll focus on that more, and we'll come back to this word again. But the absolute no-no of this or any master's program or any academic work is plagiarism. Do not pretend or do not attempt to pretend that somebody else's work is your work. So do not copy-paste other people's scientific work and present it as yourself. I mean, you can always, and you should always, research other people's work and comment on other people's work, but not without making a proper reference in your thesis to that other person's work. So always mention the author. And, you know, if you're being correct in that manner, you know, you can also have the expectation that in the future, those people reading your master thesis will mention you as the author. Do not forget how important that aspect is on many levels, on the level of academic integrity, but also on the level of the copyright and somebody's appreciation of their moral rights to their work of authorship. So once you have done all this extensive research, I mean, you will come up with some ideas for your thesis. And as, you know, the more research you do, the more developed will the structure of your thesis be. And the whole point of this section of the master thesis that has a title, body of the thesis, is that your thesis should be divided in logical chapters, obviously include an introduction and conclusion, but in between introduction and conclusion, there should be several chapters as well that deal with the different aspects of what your topic, what your master thesis aims to cover. And then within these big titles, you will also, I mean, I would expect that you have subtitles as well, and maybe even subtitles to subtitles. And the more developed the structure is, it's more likely that you have, you know, organized all these important issues for yourself properly. And then it's going to be also easier for the reader to go through. What this last paragraph of the chapter 7 reads is that a significant contribution to the field is not a requirement at the master's level. It starts with that. And I would like to repeat that as well. So what we are expecting from you at the master's level is not to invent a new legal theory or not to find a new solution to whatever problem. I mean, not that level of creativity and originality is not required at all. The best master theses are the ones who present where the science stands at the moment of their, you know, research and writing, to present to us the overview of different approaches to the same legal or whatever issue, to give us the overview of diverging views. I mean, it's very rarely that you will find a topic where everyone agrees how it should be resolved. So present to us diverging views from the authors, from the legal sources, from the case law, and then, and only then, you can state your opinion, but you don't have to be conclusive in that regard either. You can say, so this group of authors says this, and that group of authors says that, and the third group of authors says this, and then at the end you may say, in the author's opinion, and again, don't say in my opinion, in the author's opinion, the analysis of, let's say, second group of authors sounds most persuasive for the following reasons. So pretty much you can choose your team or which group of authors you want to give your vote, and then maybe add a few sentences or why you think that is the case. So the second part of this section continues. So although a significant contribution to the field is not a requirement, the thesis should go beyond simply summarizing the work of others. So you are expected, the students are expected to demonstrate the ability of analytical thinking and clear argumentation. So this is where this other element comes into play that I have just told you about. So present what the others have done, and then state, review, or choose your team, or mix and match what they have said and present what you think might be the best solution to the noted problem. And also do that in clear terms. And that's it. I mean, and on that basis, if you have conducted sufficient research and have been managed to identify different approaches to the topic, and then if you have decided which of the potential paths you're going to follow, you've done a great job. And that should be a good thesis. So with this being said, now we are going to move on to what's the crux or the main topic of our classes and your practical skills exam, and that is how the references should be made and listed, both in the footnotes and at the end of your master thesis in the list of references. And this is something where I need a 5-minute break. So if you agree, I'm going to pause now and come back to you at 7 sharp. You can stay online, of course, and wait for me while we're having this break. And in the meantime, you can type in any questions you may have in the chat. Thank you.
Dobro večer, profesorka.
Thank you.
Recording stopped. Recording in progress.
Okay, thank you very much for waiting. So we continue with the main topic for your exam and for the formatting properly your academic work starting from today. And that is that you should have the list of references at the end of the table, which should contain all the sources referred to in the text and only those. Then the sources should be listed in alphabetical order according to the author's or editor's last name with complete bibliographical details. If there are more than 3 authors, you can use the name of the first and they said et al or et alium, which means and others. And then you will see that the book and journal titles should be listed in italics. The font size should be regular. Page references are required for articles in books and journals, and online sources should be listed with complete details, including the date of visiting the site. But you'll grasp this more easier when we go through the reference style that is required for the footnotes that you will be having in your master thesis. May I remind you again, it's unlikely, if not impossible, that your master thesis will not have footnotes. For whatever you're researching on, your research and the sentences that you will be writing will be based on what you have read. And whatever you have read, those authors should be attributed for their copyright by making a reference at the end of the sentence to the book or the article or whatever else the source may be that you have read and that you have used for the purposes of your master thesis. And then, as I have said, whatever else you have read, that there might be different sources that you will be using, and those sources may have a different format. And thus the different rules might apply to how you make a reference to this particular source. So we'll start with books. And I'm sure you will read a lot of books in searching for what your topic for the master thesis will be, and then later on for writing your master thesis. Please do not put the list of a book in the list of references in the end of your master thesis, which is not referenced anywhere in the footnotes of the text of your master thesis. I've seen students telling me, well, I have read these 5 books, and on basis of what I have read there, I have written this master thesis. Well, that's not sufficient, because your master thesis should have clear references to certain pages or sections of the books that you have read in order for you to complete your master thesis. And when you make references to these books, you should include all the following details: name and last name of the author, comma, then title of the book, and the title should be in italics, followed by the publisher of the book, followed by the place of publication, year of publication, and at the end, the page that you're referring to. So every footnote where you're making a reference to a book, or at least the first time you make a reference to this book, should have the reference to the name, last name of the author, title, publisher, place of publication, year of publication, and page number. It might happen that this particular book has more than 1 edition. In that case, you should make a reference to which edition are you referring to by using the superscript above the year of publication. So what you see on the screen is 1997, and then there's 2 in superscript, which means that it's a second edition of this book. Then you will see books that have more than 1 place of publication. In such an instance, you will be using a hyphen to separate those. So in this particular example, you see that this book is published in Vienna and New York. So Vienna-New York is how the place of publication should be referenced in your footnote. And here, again, the number 3 that you see above 2010 being the year of publication is the 3rd edition of this particular book. So again, don't forget, when we talk about books, the title of the book should be in italics. Everything else should not be in italics. Then we go to another source of research that you will be using, and these are different articles published in different journals. And there, the rule is, again, name and last name of the author. But then, in quotation marks, you put the name of the particular article from the journal. So the name of the article or the title of the article from the journal is in quotation marks, and then the name of the journal is in italics. And then you have the number or the issue of the journal and the year of publication, followed by the page number. Carlos, you have raised your hand. Please ask the question.
Yeah, regarding to that last example that you were showing us about Vienna and as far as I could see, it was written on German, or I don't really know which language. So we are not, we don't have to do any translation, right?
Exactly, exactly. You should be using the titles as they are in the language in whichever they are published. But this raises another question, and thank you for asking this question. So, for example, you can use as many books as you want in Spanish and keep the titles in Spanish. It's not for us to translate the works, and in particular, we're not doing any help to the readers in the future, because when they want to find the book that they have seen in your footnote, if you have translated the name, they may not be able to find it, perhaps. So keep the original name. But you may want, it's not mandatory, as you can see from these instructions, but you may want to put in the brackets. So after you put the name of the original work, maybe you want to put in the brackets the translation to English, so that the reader knows what this book is about, and then on the basis of that, decide whether they want to, look up for this German or Spanish or Russian or Chinese book, or whether they do not need to do the further research. And this is something that you will talk to your supervisor. So, if you were asking me this question, if I were your supervisor, I would tell you, well, if it's not too much of a hassle for you, why don't you include in the brackets the translation of the titles to English, but keep the original as well. Some other supervisor might tell you, well, the original is sufficient. But I'm 100% sure that no supervisor will tell you, do the translation of all the works in the footnotes, because that's not helpful to the reader if they cannot locate the original of the work that you have been quoting.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Are there any other questions in this regard, or something else based on what we have gone through so far? So once again, just to note the difference, when you're referencing a book, the title of the book should be in italics. When you're referencing an article, the title of the article should be in quotation marks, and the title of the journal should be in italics. So these are two different ways how you separate quoting books and articles. And again, if you have more than one author of the book or the article, you should put all their names and last names. But if there are more than three, you can also use the name and last name of the first one and then followed by et al, which means et aliut and et alium and others. But I would still, I would do this abbreviated form in the footnotes, but I would still, at the end of your master thesis, in the list of references, put all the names of the authors to be visible at the list of references. And now there's another question that might come to your mind, that often comes in mind when you are doing your master thesis. So you have read dozens of books and articles. In the first footnote, you mention one book and one author. But it's not like you're going to mention this book only in the first footnote. You will also make a reference to it in the 15th, 25th, 55th, and God knows how many times more. So you will not be expected to put the whole, let's say, thing or reference every time you mention this book. So only first time when you mention a book or an article, you will have the whole name, last name, title of the book, publisher, place of publication, year, and page number. Every other reference to the same book or article can be in an abbreviated form. And that means you can only have the first letter of the author's name, followed by the last name, followed by the page number. This will imply that it's the same book that has been referenced somewhere before again. And for the reader who has forgotten which book it might be, this is why your table of references at the end of the master thesis will be helpful, because he or she are going to go to the end of your table and look in alphabetical order where the last name Raz appears, and then see which book in particular you are now quoting again. But this will also not be a burden for the text of your thesis, because if every time you make a reference to the full title of every book and journal that you are referencing, it might end up that your footnotes are longer than the text of your thesis. So, that's also something that is not needed or not desired. But then it might happen, some people are more knowledgeable than the others, or some people write more than the others. So it might happen that this person, let's say me, you are reading my books and articles, and I have published several books and articles on the topics that are relevant for your research. Then the question is, how do you make a reference to that? If you, in an abbreviated form, if you only put M. Georgievich, the reader will not know whether it's M. Georgievich, her doctorate thesis, M. Georgievich, her work on the World Trade Organization, M. Georgievich, her work in the commentary on the Sales Convention, or which of the books that she has written or articles. So then what helps is to put the year of publication of the particular source that you're quoting in the brackets. So if Milena Georgievich is being referenced by you, different books, articles in the same thesis, then every time you make an abbreviated reference to my work, you will also put the publication date. Because, and this is the assumption, one of my works was published in 2006, the other in 2012, the other in 2020. So this is going to be a sufficient distinctive factor for the reader to go to the table of references and figure out which book are you actually quoting again in your thesis. But then again, I might be a very busy author who is publishing 4 books per year or 5 articles per year. And then even this kind of reference is not sufficient. Then you use this ABC abbreviated technique. So you're quoting me from 2012, and I have 3 works. So you'll put A, B, C to the different 3 works, and that's how you're going to make reference to me. Understood? Okay, so in all the previous examples, you've seen that the reference to an article or a book has to be followed by a page number. And so far we have discussed the singular page numbers, but sometimes you are referring to the whole section of the book or several pages of the book. And then, if you know it's from to this or that page, you can put a reference including the page numbers where this general idea that you're discussing is contained or elaborated, or if it's starting from one page and then until the end of the article or the book, you can use this abbreviation @sec. So put the starting page and then say @sec. But at no point in time, I believe, you can make a reference to the book as the whole book without any specific page number or section. That's impossible, and I have to repeat that once again. You're not going to be making references to the whole book. Sometimes, and this is something that you will learn yourself. So there's a body of your thesis. So you're writing, your main ideas are being developed in the text of your thesis. But sometimes you also make some side references. And these side references are, interesting for the reader, but they do not need to be in the main text. So sometimes you make a reference in the footnote of your paper. And this is something that the other authors are doing as well. So I'm writing a paper on a certain topic based on the WTO agreements, and then in the footnote I put some statistics, which I think might be interesting for the reader, but they're not so essential to be in the main text. And then you are making a reference to my work. And you are actually making a reference to these statistics that I have laid out in the footnote of my work. If that is the case, then you're going to put my name, last name, title of the book, publisher, place of publication, year of publication, page number, and then the number of the footnote to which you are referring to. That's also very important to note, that those kinds of references are also possible. And sometimes, and you may ask me this as well, okay, so what do? You're reading my article, and I have dozens of footnotes, and I'm making reference to dozens of authors. So what do you do in a case where I have written a sentence which ends with a footnote, and the footnote contains 3 different authors and their works? Are you quoting me, or are you quoting them? And how do you do that? What would be your approach to this matter? What do you think is the most proper way to handle this thing? Okay, if nobody wants to take the floor, let me share my ideas of what would be the most proper way to deal with this thing. First of all, I mean, footnotes of my work are very, useful for you, as will your footnotes be to the reader who is going to read your work afterwards. But when you see that I have made a reference to a certain author, do not presume or assume that I'm, quoting this person correctly. Maybe I misunderstood what he or she was saying. It's always best to do what Ognjen is suggesting in a chat, to look at the originals. So my research was helpful to you to identify where your research can further go, and that's the books and articles from the footnote. So try to find those books and articles and check whether, to start with, if my reference is correct, whether my understanding of what they have written is correct. And if so, then you're free to, of course, make a reference to the originals and not to me paraphrasing the originals. But what if you cannot locate the works that I have been quoting? Maybe it's some rare book, rare edition, that it's not available online or in the library, and you cannot reach me. And still, it seems to you that it's an interesting idea that I've been saying that somebody else is saying. Then you can say in the footnote that, but this is probably going to be very rare, but let's assume it happens, that you are, referring to the work of a certain author as referenced by Milena Đorđević in her book, and then you say page number and footnote number. So only then you will take it for the face value that I'm doing the reference correctly, but you will guard yourself by mentioning the author and mentioning me as a source of such quotation. So this is, let's say, indirect quotation. Direct quotation is when you have actually read something yourself and then you're paraphrasing it or making comments on it or conclusions deriving from it. And the indirect ways where you have learned of somebody's work from somebody else's work and you did not properly tested it yourself, but you are making conclusions or analysis based on what I have told you that this person has written. So that is a fair approach or an acceptable approach only if otherwise you cannot find this source yourself. Okay, so Latin abbreviations, when you are repeatedly quoting the same book. So let's say in footnote 15, 16, and 17, you're making a reference to the same book. Then you're using the Latin abbreviation, which means the same, and that's IBID. And you use it in the italics. If you're using the same book as in footnote 16, you're using the same book as in the footnote 15, but a different page, not the same page. Then you say again IBID, but then you add the page number that you're referring to this time. And now we come to the more, let's say, complicated things when it comes to, or for the purposes of making references in footnotes. And this is, again, a common source of mistakes when people are, writing scientific papers for the first time. So far we have covered books that are authored by certain people. And then we have covered articles that are authored by certain people, one or more. But then there are books which are edited by certain people. So I appear as an editor of a book that contains 10 different chapters written by 10 different people. On the cover page, you will see my name as the editor. And then in the text of the book, every chapter will have a name of the author of this particular chapter. This is particularly common for the commentaries of legal sources. Let's say that there's a regulation that has 100 articles, and you will have a commentary of this regulation that's going to be edited by Milena Đorđević, but the specific articles in the book, some of them will be also written by me, but others will be written by my colleagues, Professor Dragica Vojinović, Professor Miodrag Jovanović, Professor Ivana Krstić, and so on and so forth. So how do you make a reference to such a publication? So let's imagine that you want to quote something from chapter 3, which is written by Ivana Krstić, and it's contained in the book that I have edited. Or what would you think? What do you think is a common mistake? What do people do? What do you think people most often do in such instances? People usually look at the cover of the book, and on the cover of the book, they see my name, and I'm only the editor. I mean, not only, being an editor is a time-consuming and difficult task, don't get me wrong, but I'm not the author, at least not of the whole book, maybe of certain chapters in it. So many people would make a reference to the me, followed by my name, followed by the title of the book, followed by the publisher, place of publication year, and then they would put the page number that they are quoting from. But this page number or the text on this page is written by Ivana Krstić. And this chapter has a particular name or title about human rights of, I don't know, somebody. So the correct way to do what you should do in this instance is start with the name of the author. Always start with the name of the author. So say Ivana Krstić. And then in quotation marks, put the title of the chapter that she is writing. So try to perceive it almost as if it was an article. So the title of her chapter in quotation marks. Then followed by what's on the covers. And on the covers you see the title of the book, and that's commentary of regulation on something. And then in the brackets, you will make a reference to me, editor, ED, Milena Đorđević. So you will not forget me as the editor, but Ivana Krstić as the author comes first. And then followed by the publisher, place of publication, year of publication, and page numbers. So please keep this in mind. Don't be deceived only by the cover of the book. Always pay attention whether it's an authored book or an edited book, because in the later instance, it's most likely the different chapters will be written by different people. And then we move on to how you make reference to different legal sources, be it statutes or conventions or directives, regulations, and so on and so forth. The main rule should be to make a reference, the most complete reference that you can find, which includes the title of the act, the journal where the act was published, the number and year of publication, and then, if possible or if available, put the link to the website where it can be located. And here, Carlos, we can revisit your question perhaps, because as you can see from this example, this rule does not follow what we have discussed before, because here the reference to Personal Data Protection Act, which is an act published here in Serbia, contains the translation to English. Although this example states it that way, I would suggest that you put the original title of the act in any event, in quotation marks, the English translation, and then followed by everything else, you know, the official paper where it, the Gazette where it was published, the number of the issue of publication, and the year of publication. Carlos, go ahead.
Yeah, now that you are mentioning this, I have seen in some laws in certain countries that they are publishing, like let's say the original one in one language, but also in another language. So maybe in that case, it could be considered both of them as the original one, let's say.
If you have the original translation of an act published in a certain country in different languages, then that's fine. Like EU directives, regulation are published in all EU languages, right? Or UN documents are published in all UN official languages. So with those, it's easy. Choose whichever, choose English as the language that you will be making a reference to. But Serbian acts, for example, are published in Serbian only. There's no official translation. There are some translations which might be helpful for you to use, but they are not official. Is it different in Mexico?
Well, no, in Mexico generally it's just in Spanish language, the official language. But yeah, I have seen a couple of countries that they are doing like in two different languages. I don't know, maybe the official one, they have even 3 official languages and they are doing in that way. That's what I was wondering. But regarding, for example, to Serbia, I don't know. I just saw, for example, talking about immigration stuff, that they are publishing some acts in the official channels in English, and they are like the laws and regulations in English, but maybe that's another different case. It's not official, or I don't know.
Well, we can talk about that next time we meet. I'm not familiar that any piece of legislation is officially translated to English. There are some useful English translations which you can locate even on the websites of certain ministries, if you mean the official, state bodies in Serbia.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt to have the original title of the act with English translation, and then with the reference to where this English translation can be located. As you see, the rule here allows you to do the translation yourself of the name of the act, of the name of the journal where it was published. So I'm not going to insist on you using the original language as well, but maybe it's not a bad idea to do so. But in any event, as long as you have the proper reference to the journal where it was published and the year and issue of publication, you're going to help the reader to locate it. And nowadays, most of the acts are also published online somewhere, so including the link to the source is also very, very helpful. So that might resolve some of the problems with translation. But I can also give you an example, like law and obligations in Serbia. It has never received its official translation, or the many translation exists. And the website of the Ministry of Justice actually also has one translation of the law of obligations to English, but it's authored by a certain person, and the translation is far from perfect. So I would not, you might kind of come to different conclusions on the basis of the translation itself without knowing the original language with respect to this particular piece of legislation. But it is what it is, and all of you are here to learn and to try to understand not only European and international legal system better, but also to some extent the Serbian legal system better. So I hope for all of you this will not present an obstacle by the end of your studies and at the time of your researching the master thesis. But we're always here to help if you have any additional questions. So these examples here are from Serbian legislation, but the similar would be for, I don't know, in Mexico, where are the laws being published? In Derecho something, right? You also have some sort of an official journal for...
Yes, we have an official journal that is publishing everything, and you can find, you can use it online and whatever.
Yeah, and the same thing, I suppose, is in China and Bangladesh and the other countries that are represented in this group. But the most important thing is that all the international sources, meaning UN, EU, and all the other international organizations, they have all of their, let's in quotation mark, laws and regulations published online. So, and to the best of my knowledge, they all have English version as well. So that's going to help us for the most of the sources that you will be using for the master thesis. I mean, I assume that nobody is going to have a very nation-specific or country-specific topic at the end of this program. If my assumption is wrong, then we'll deal with it when the time comes. Okay, so then what these rules tell you that when you're making a reference to article in the footnote, you can use the abbreviated version. So instead of saying article, you can use art dot. And when it's plural, it can be arts dot. And then again, and here you see the example is completely different than the one above. When we are citing court cases, how do we make a reference to the court case? And here you see it's in the original language. So the name of this court is being written in German, Oberlandesgericht Frankfurt am Main. Whereas in English, we would call the Oberlandesgericht by a different name, and in Serbian and in Spanish by a different name. So the whole idea here was to, again, make sure that the reader understands which court you are referring to. But it would not be a bad thing if you include in the brackets, let's say, I don't know, if this is an appellate court, you say this is an appellate court of Frankfurt am Main, so that the reader also understands which level in the judicial system of a respective country this court fits in. And speaking of that, the name does not always tell you which level it is, because, I mean, I don't know how many of you are aware of that, but the Supreme Court of New York is which instance court? Does anyone know that? So funny enough, the Supreme Court of New York is the first instance court. This is how the courts are organized within the state of New York. So if you were quoting the Supreme Court of New York, that does not mean that you were quoting the final instance in New York. Quite contrary, you were quoting the first instance court. So anyhow, that's also requires understanding of different judicial systems, which, for some countries might be too much. I mean, for you, it might be too much to expect to understand the judicial systems of all the countries in the world. And again, hopefully your sources will predominantly be international in its nature and not national. But then again, some comparative overview is always helpful. For the Latin and other foreign words and phrases and the internet addresses, these rules require or suggest that you use them in italics. So, prima facie, this is a prima facie case. It's something that is being used in English as well as in other languages. But still, when you type the words prima facie, put them in italics. Or when you say that something that this statute covers inter alia this and that, inter alia meaning among other things, again, put the words inter alia in italics, and so on and so forth. I know that you know what I'm referring to. It's very common in the sphere of humanitarian sciences that you make references to certain Latin terms that have become so familiar to everyone in the area of the research that do not require translating to English. And then when it comes to the sources found on the web, I mean, this rule does not cover all the situations, again, but as for the legal acts and case law and now internet sources, let's decide or agree that the rule should have as much information as possible and available to make it easy and accessible to the reader of your thesis to go to the source that you're quoting. Of course, there's going to be a link, and the date when you access the link is also a mandatory requirement in the footnote, but then also mention what you see on the screen that you're quoting. I mean, it might be a document from a certain organization, it might be a news bulletin, it might be a blog of a certain person that you are making a reference to. Just put as many elements, including the name of the author, if there's a name of the author, the title of this article that you are commenting on, which is available available on the website. And then, of course, the link to the website with the date when you have accessed it. So here we have, some other comments that deal with the body of your thesis. Again, quotation and paraphrasing. I have told you before on several occasions, do not forget to put a footnote. You always have to make a reference to someone's work and so on and so forth. But it does not mean that only when you put somebody's words in quotation marks, when you do the reference tell Cal or as he or she has said it, that you need to make a reference in a footnote. Whenever you're paraphrasing somebody's work or commenting or deriving conclusions from somebody's work, you should also include a footnote, no matter how differently you make or put the sentence in your text. That's what the rules of the academic integrity require. And again, what's written here is something that I'm expected to warn you about, and that's the rules against plagiarism. So we are all obliged, we as supervisors, before you're allowed to defend orally your master thesis, we are expected to submit your thesis or have it uploaded in this platform that does the plagiarism check. And if the results of this survey turn out to be that more than 20% of your text actually belongs to other people, then you will not be allowed to defend your thesis. So this program is not, brilliant. I mean, sometimes, and you might say, well, what, 20% is allowed? I'm not telling you that 20% of plagiarizing other people's work is allowed, but this software also detects, like sometimes even, the text that you have written in quotation marks, they might detect its source and then tell me as a supervisor that it's plagiarized, but then I will go manually through the text and see everything that the program has outlined and then do my check whether it's plagiarized or not. And of course, what's in quotation marks will never be plagiarized. Of course, when you are quoting the text of the statute, it cannot be a plagiarism. Of course, when you're quoting a text from the decision, it cannot be plagiarism. But again, references should be made for different reasons. But if I see that, your paragraph is very similar to a paragraph of Ivana Krstić without you making a reference to Ivana Krstić's work, then that's going to be something that I'll consider plagiarized. And if there's more than, and the more of those instances there are, the more likely will be that I will fail you or prevent you from, taking the defense of the master thesis until you make the corrections of everything where, it seems as you have plagiarized somebody's work. Luckily, it does not happen often that we are in that situation. Either our master students are serious enough and careful enough to avoid that situation, or we are stubborn enough and boring enough to repeat these warnings. But, your thesis may be good, very good, or excellent, but just don't make it, or keep it your thesis. Don't take benefits from somebody else's work, because then you might actually fail the program, and that would be very unfortunate. And these words of caution also go when it comes to the practical skills exam. Please, I told you only have 200 plus words to write the abstract. I do the same thing for this exam as I do for the master thesis. Please do not take somebody else's abstract as your own. It's so easy to write an abstract that you really do not have to fail this silly test, if I may call it that way. And then there's the layout, which you have gone through it, with Petra Pavlović. Then there are the information about the length. The usual master thesis is somewhere, 40 plus pages long. The master thesis should not exceed more than 50, 60 pages, because then already we are stepping into the scope of what can be your future doctoral thesis. And you're more than welcome to continue your education at the Belgrade University and write your doctoral thesis later on, let's start with the more demanding or less demanding assignment, which is a master thesis. Obviously, it should be written in English, and the English should be good, right? I mean, don't make your supervisors do the work of, the English teachers. If you are not happy with the quality of your written English, find a colleague, find somebody who can help you polish the language itself. Don't expect your supervisor to do so, because that's not our task. Our task is to comment on your research findings. But then again, if your English is really poor, we will not come to that stage at all, and this might, prolong the process of you defending the thesis. Also, something that should always be avoided, the Word program, when you set the language to English, does the spelling and grammar check for you. So use the tools that are available and have the Word make you corrections that otherwise you would expect from us to do, which is not what we are expected to do at the master thesis supervision process. I'm not advising you. Okay, so there's this new tool, ChatGPT, or the other AI tools that some students use or misuse or overly use, or I'm not even sure which adverb to put into it. I would lie if I'm going to tell you that we have a program that detects whether something is written by AI or not. But I'm going to tell you that as a supervisor, I can easily detect whether something is a result of the work of my student or whether something is a result of a work of a third person or a robot. And again, just like plagiarism is not welcomed, so is it's also not welcome to present the AI research as your own. And by the way, for many reasons, including the one AI gets it wrong so many times. And I've even heard people who have, like, funny thing, a colleague of mine has failed his student on the master's exam because this student has used ChatGPT to fill in the footnotes, let's say, to invent literature that this student was allegedly using. And as dumb as the robot can be, but also the student, I must say, he has used the works of his mentor, which never existed. It's like you using the words in the works of me, Milena Đorđević, that I have never written. Like saying Milena Đorđević, Human Rights, Belgrade 2025. No, that's not me. I did not publish anything, a book with such a title, or even anything remotely here. And then you submit a master thesis to me, and I see this made-up work, and obviously it's a red flag that something is really, really wrong. And then from that one mistake, we enter into the second and third, and I figure out that none of the things that you have written are your individual work, but rather a work of the ChatGPT. So don't do that. But for the technical things, maybe asking the AI to check your spelling and grammar, advise you on the structure of the sentence that you have already written. I cannot advise you against it. Quite the contrary. I think that that kind of a limited use of the available artificial intelligence can be helpful and to our mutual satisfaction. So if you're not happy with your English, write the sentence as you think should be, and then have somebody else, look it up for you and make certain changes before you submit your work to your mentor. And I think this completes what these MA thesis guidelines cover. And again, I'm here to answer any questions that you may have in this regard. And I'm also going to let you know what your assignment will be, which I will send to you by email to check whether you have understood what we were discussing earlier.
Professor.
Yes, go ahead.
We need 2 or 3 samples, standard format to our email to check the everything in details. What you tell to us.
You don't have to watch these samples now. Yeah, you can examples, sorry. You can leave. But I mean, I'm going to be here only for another 5 minutes or so. It's not going to last much longer. So as you wish. Let me just show you what I have prepared for you, and you're going to get it by email. Okay, so this is a collection of books and articles or different sources that hypothetically you might be using for your master thesis. So the first one is the book written by Lawrence Gormley on EU law, free movement of goods and customs union, and then published by Oxford University Press. And then here you will see the year and the place of publication as well. And then here is the page 32, where you are pretending to be quoting something from this page. So I expect from you to receive how the footnote would look like if you were making a reference to Mr. Lawrence Gormley, who has published this book with this publisher at that place at that year, and this is on page 32. Then the second footnote that I want from you to receive is how would you quote this article? So Petra Butler has written an article on the use of the CSG in domestic law. This article was published in the Belgrade Law Review in 2011, issue 3, and you're quoting page 7 or page 8. How would you do that? I want that to receive. And then so on and so forth. You will see page numbers on every new exercise, but all of them have the same not page number, sorry, but the exercise number, written by me, by my handwriting. All of them have the same idea. See if you can test your understanding of the reference style from the master thesis guidelines based on the literature that I have prepared in this document that has 26 pages maximum, and altogether I think 11 exercises. So I expect from you 11 footnotes on how you would make a reference to this particular source if you were using it in the footnotes of your master thesis. Is that clear? Okay, somebody is writing.
Clear. Just to check, when should we submit this assignment?
That's a good question. Okay, so are you at the Masters of European Integration or at the Law and Gender?
Law and Gender.
Can we? Okay, let's try to set the same deadline then. Maybe that's best. Can you do it by the end of this week? I mean, in theory, I can tell you, why don't you send it to me by tomorrow? But maybe you have other plans tonight and you're working tomorrow during the day. But by the end of this week, would that be sufficient? Trust me, I mean, it's not going to take you more than an hour. If we stop now and you dedicate another hour for going through this exercise, you will have it completed. Okay, I'm not going to... Carlos, go ahead.
So this task might be sending by email or through Moodle or...
No, yes, by email. Send it to me by email.
Okay, super.
Yeah, you have my email address. Okay, well then, yeah, there's not more to say from me at this point. Other than that, for the Law and Gender group, I will send you an email with the date and time when we're going to have a makeup class. Once I see with the secretary of the course what days are available for you. And for the Masters in European Integration group, we'll have a class tomorrow. And do we know, I mean, how many of you should I expect in person? Because if it's going to be only 2 people, then maybe it's best if we have the whole class online. I'm just asking.
For which masters?
Sorry?
For which master are you?
European integration.
I mean, like, generally, we are attending around between 4 and 5.
Recording stopped.
Okay. Okay, so, I mean, let's... let's do what? Let's hope that tomorrow we can have an in-person, or maybe is it safer if we tomorrow continue online and then for the next class we aim at having an in-person meeting? I don't want to reshuffle somebody's plans. If I tell you now, let's meet in person tomorrow, and then, I send you a last minute notice that, I know it's not helpful to anyone. Is it fine if we have an online class tomorrow and then we resume with in-person classes as of the next class section?
Yeah, I think it's okay.
Dear professor,
Yes,
I have a proposal.
go
I
ahead.
have a proposal. If you start the European Literature class and our class both from 9 p.m. and up to how much you want, then you will take the both class in the same way, because our classes tomorrow is 6 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. After that we are free.
I know, but I suppose, and maybe I'm wrong, that 9 p.m. is very late to start the classes. So thank you for the suggestion, but let's let's think of a different date and time. It might be just too long, but thank you. Okay, well, once again, many thanks for everyone for being here and for accommodating my unfortunate schedule and the change from in-person to fully remote class today. I will send you the assignments by email. I'll expect for you to complete them within a week time. The sooner you complete them, the better. I mean, you don't have to wait for the deadline. We'll then go through them afterwards. If you have any questions, feel free to email me and ask the questions. If not, you feel free also to come at the times when I have classes. My practical skills classes with the Master of European Integration students are only beginning, and there are going to be several dates when we will meet to go through the legal English or vocabulary matters regarding this program. But again, just so you know, I mean, these classes that we are going to have further on, I think are very interesting and useful for many reasons, but they have nothing to do with what your exam is going to be. I mean, pretty much what we have covered today is the crux of what's expected from you at the exam for both groups of students. The rest of what we are going to do is legal English. And again, I welcome the students from the law and gender if they want to attend legal English classes starting from tomorrow at the times when they can, when the dates fit their schedule. I mean, the more the merrier. I'll be happy to have you.
Excuse me, can I just ask something to finish? The assignment will be distributed by email, and there will be instructions and these documents on which we should work on, right, and make footnotes and everything. It will be all explained in email. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, then this completes our class for today. Many thanks. Enjoy the rest of the evening, and I'm looking forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Laku noć.
Laku noć. Laku noć.
Bye.
Goodbye.